Hello and welcome to Tuesdays with Morrissey. I'm your host, Adam Morrissey. Today I'm thrilled to be joined by a good friend, somebody I really admire and work closely with in a couple different capacities in her efforts to improve the world. That's Erica Molett. Erica is someone who likes to build things from the ground up, and she currently leads 3 organizations she founded, at least 3, it might be more. Kendake Tech, a nonprofit called Beyond the Ball, and a consulting firm called Expansion Solutions. Erica, how's it going today?
Hey, I'm excited to be here with you, Adam. I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I'm excited to have you. So thank you. How many organizations would you say you run? I listed 3. I didn't want to misspeak.
No, I would just leave it at the 3. And then there are innovations that are kind of being birthed out of those, specifically out of Kendake Tech. We're an idea house. And so we're building platforms that will eventually fly away and live on their own. So we'll just stick with 3. That keeps it simple.
Okay. All right. And when you think about those 3 organizations that you run, do you see them as standalones, or do they somehow contribute to a more holistic, cohesive vision?
That's a great question. I would say yes, they are technically, legally structured as 3 separate entities, but they are all 3 different necessary dimensions of the same goal. And so that goal being to prepare our Gen Z youth for success in their futures. And so, the nonprofit does that through the lens of sports, and it does it inside of communities. Expansion Solutions does that through educating students as well as educators on the jobs of the future. And then Kendake Tech does it through having a more scalable, technologically accessible way for families to directly plug in to cool ways to help their kids lean into their passions. And so it's all, if there's a theme, it would be prepare Gen Z to lead.
Could you speak a little bit to the view you have on the potential of people and Gen Z and how you think about empowering them for their futures?
There was a report that Bank of America written about Gen Z, and the report said that Gen Z young people will be the most disruptive and innovative generation ever. And I just heard the term Gen A, which is the generation after Gen Z. They still got a while before they're on the stage, but this Gen Z audience is really the first one to grow up with YouTube and TikTok being just as much of an educational, inspirational, or influential resource as their classrooms and their families. And because there is no gatekeeper to any piece of knowledge, good or bad, that they want to access, they have the potential to truly disrupt so many different areas of the world. And I believe that after, spending so much time with hundreds and hundreds of Gen Z kids around the country, especially during the pandemic, both virtually and then in person, I really believe this generation is far more brilliant than we give them credit for as their parents, as their teachers, as that random stranger walking down the sidewalk and seeing a Gen Z kid, with their hoodie on and their AirPods and their face buried in a phone. What you may not even realize is that kid may be following some really cool person who builds gaming PCs like my son does. Or maybe they're learning how to use Unreal Engine and code games, or maybe they're just watching something that's ridiculously stupid or inappropriate, but mixed in with all of that curation that they find online, they really have access and a global challenge amongst their peers to be great. And they don't have to wait for our permission. They can start a social media page today and start to share their gift or their products with the world. And so I'm just such a huge fan of their potential, not their potential 10 years from now, but their potential today. And, Mark Zuckerberg was an example of that, years ago. I'm like, who's this kid who's built Facebook? And look where it's gone. Who's the next Facebook. He really helped to give kids a new challenge, even at a younger age. And I'm just here to ride the wave with them because one day I'll be the beneficiary of their greatness,
When you're saying that, it's something I didn't think about with the work you do at Beyond the Ball and with Kandake Tech to empower these students with mentorship, resources, educational content. Is Malcolm Gladwell, in his book Outliers, the 10,000 hour theory really boils down to opportunity meets hard work. All the stories about the innovators like Bill Gates, he had access to a computer, and he had also, that was a passion he had. So what sort of projects are you working on to help provide that exposure, so that these, the next generation has a platform to cultivate their interest and become experts in some of the things they want to pursue?
Yeah, so I would say that we're working on several things. For one, what I learned from just observing my younger son, who was a gamer, who we thought he was obsessed with gaming, and hearing him say that, hey, I want to build a gaming PC, and I've learned how to do it on YouTube. I was very excited about that, but I was also very concerned with everything else that he was going to find on YouTube. There was really no way to curate the positives and separate them from, the ads or from the language, what have you, that may also come along with that. And so that's when I built our ed tech company, Kandake Tech, to create Banaki.com. And Banaki is, and we're still a startup, we're still very young, right at about a year. And Banaki is focused on making passion-based masterclasses available to this generation of gamers and creatives. So teaching them some of the micro skills that they need to know to be creators, but going beyond that, being able to see how what they love and the micro skills they want to learn, how they connect to industry jobs and industry entrepreneurship in the future. And so we've got a secret sauce behind it that we're building. And we've been very fortunate to listen and learn from various individuals from Epic Games, Riot Games, PlayStation, FaZe Clan, you name it. We've really been in a listening mode to understand from the industry what's, as a new friend that I was speaking to a little earlier said, not what's coming tomorrow, but what's after that, so that these kids can become ahead of the game in some really cool ways. And so that's what we're doing through the EdTech lens. Through our consulting firm, Expansion Solutions, we have, as well as through Beyond the Ball, we have a number of programs that we do, project-based learning programs that we do inside of schools, so that the students become the innovators and they're able to hear from and interact with industry mentors in areas such as the metaverse or gaming or sneakers. And so for Beyond the Ball, one of our famous products or projects that we've done for hundreds of kids is our Sneaker Lab. And the Sneaker Lab, in partnership with Nike, we actually built it right around the beginning of the pandemic with some employees from Nike. The Sneaker Lab allows students to hear about the career journeys of various Nike employees, and we've worked with over 50 so far, as well as to learn a certain skill that they may need, whether it's storytelling or design or shoe science. And then the students are thrown into these randomly selected teams, and sometimes they have 2 hours to design a shoe and a mood board and a marketing strategy. Sometimes they have 6 weeks, and they have to create a distribution plan and pricing model and all kinds of things. And so those are some of the ways, and now we're starting to really talk about the metaverse and some things like that. So those are just a couple or a few of the ways that we are starting to not just give students exposure in a classroom type setting, but also allow them to take the keys and drive in some really innovative ways so they can see, touch, and feel it, and then realize that they have this potential that no one ever told them they had.
You mentioned like the technology available to the next generation, and even anyone living in the world today can kind of be a double-edged sword. It's like the old saying though, hey, is a knife good or bad? Well, it depends how you use it. If you're using it in the kitchen, it's fine. But how do you think about kind of that dual nature of potential of technology influencing the next generation of students, and then also the role your organizations play in making sure they're being used for productive, inspiring uses?
What we know is that every single generation has had a microscope on the way they will use whatever the new innovation is, right? So for our generation, the internet was going to steal, well, you're much younger than me. For my generation, the internet was going to steal our souls, or it was the music, or it was the, download music. It was Napster and all the kids that, there's so many different instances when society is afraid of change and innovation. And at the end of the day, we still can't control that. The train is already moving. When you look at some of the most monumental examples of innovation in our society. And so, and with that, with young people, that means there's going to be some access that they will have to decide how they're going to allow it to influence them. That is absolutely true. And that's always a concern for every parent, every educator, etc. But I like to focus on the power that can come from this generation, not just being consumers of whatever that new innovation is, but the creators to drive it forward and curating some of those opportunities to learn in an environment that parents can trust, educators can trust, the kid can know is a safe environment. That's how we can help to moderate their foray into those areas. But at the same time, I'm the kind of parent that's also a realist, because I was once a teenager who is the same, with the same mindsets of this generation in some regards. And, they're still going to make the decisions they're going to make when they have those freedoms to make those decisions, whether it's in their room and you're in the kitchen and they're on their phone, or if it's at school, behind the schoolhouse while they're waiting to be picked up. If we focus so much on the negatives, we can miss out on innovations that can positively change the world.
Yeah, I think about that a lot. Like, I've done some work with middle school and high school kids, and a lot of it's just knowing what's out there. Like, there seems to be like an innate teenage desire for greatness. And so, teaching them, like, they want to do stuff like program, or they want to follow content that's inspiring, or they want to do stuff like journaling and, reflection. They just don't really know where to start. So how do you empower them with the resources to know this is where you can go to cultivate these skills? And that's really what it sounds like you guys are building, especially at Banneky with, the master classes on creating. I really like the distinction you drew on creating versus consuming. It reminds me of that the Social Dilemma documentary, when they were talking about, if you're not paying for something, you are the product.
Yep, that's right. Well, I love that question, because one of the things that I should have said is just how mindful this generation is. Unfortunately, this generation has seen so much global trauma. We as adults have seen it as well, but I believe it hits differently when you're a kid. You don't really know how to explain what it meant to you to see the murder of George Floyd, or for you to see the world enter into this global pandemic, and businesses being shut down and family members being lost in droves. But it absolutely has made them a thoughtful generation that, in their own circles, they're talking about pollution. They're talking about suicide prevention. They're talking about empowering one another and philanthropy. Their generation, someone I'm kind of obsessed with right now is Mr. Beast. And
I don't know Mr. Beast.
Mr. Beast, well, I'm going to try to describe who he is. I'm still a new fan. I've been hearing about him for years. But Mr. Beast is this guy who's he's probably the largest YouTuber in the world. But he gives away crazy things, islands, houses, cars, things like that. But his message is so much about positivity and changing the world through acts of kindness. And these are the types of people that our young people are following. And so this generation, they really are, they do want better. They want to build a better world. They care about the state of the planet, and so those are things that we don't often realize about this generation because they're still teenagers and they don't just walk around talking to us and opening up about all of their emotions. And, when it comes to your question of how do we direct them towards where to plug in to continue birthing their passions, for us, I think their generation already knows where to plug in. They know how to find the information that they want to know. There's almost nothing short of heart surgery. And you could probably find some heart surgery TikTok videos. I'm pretty sure I've seen at least one or two. There is no lack of access to learning. What there may be a lack of is empowerment by adults to just go be great now, And so whether it's your kid wants to start a fashion line, or they want to make anime, or they want to build gaming PCs. Some of these things cost capital, it's almost first world opportunities, right? So my son, we've spent thousands of dollars on his gaming PC building obsession. And I'm blessed to be able to help him with that. But how can we, and this is a question I haven't solved, of course, how can we help kids who've learned how to do something like building a gaming PC or creating NFTs just from watching YouTube? How do we as adults empower them to start to do those things in real life, And so that's one of the problems that I am trying to find ways to solve. But then in other regards, some of the easier, more low-hanging fruits, whether it's producing music. These kids are producing amazing music, but they need a marketplace where they can share it. Or they think they want to do a certain career, but they don't know anyone who's done that. That's a solution that, that we have the ability to support. We introduce them to individuals who are doing some of the cool things that they want to do. And we'll be able to some of those micro skills that, our goal as adults, and our goal is through across all three of my companies, is just to be the spark. And we all know, just looking back at our youth, there was no one person that walked alongside of us for every endeavor, every passion, every whim, every goal that we had, right? There was someone sparked an interest. And for you have an amazing love for reading and for people and for learning about the mindsets, habits of people. But no one is sitting around teaching you how to do that every day. No one's handing you the book that you need to read today. Once that spark has happened in your life, then you take it from there. And we teach them resilience. I had a young man who asked me to introduce him to an employee from Nike that had spoken at a recent camp that we did in Chicago. And I thought that I'd sent the email, but I hadn't. And so 2 weeks later, we're talking. He said, yeah, I really look forward to you introducing me to Mr. Palmer. And I said, let me tell you something. If there's something you want, you don't let anyone stop you from getting it, especially if they've already told you yes. And that includes me. You knock on that door, you remind me, you bug me. That's what we teach. Those invaluable lessons that are just all about your grit and hustle once that spark has been lit. And so I hope that answers your question.
No, I think it does, and it unlocks a lot of thoughts. For any listeners that will ever get a chance to see Erica speak to teenagers, it's definitely something that you shouldn't miss if you get the opportunity. She'll say exactly what you need to hear also, even as an adult. I mean, you talk about some of these problems you're trying to solve. What do you think the role of some of these major organizations, some of which that you're working with, Nike, PlayStation, Microsoft, what do you think the role and opportunity they have in this equation?
Yeah. So I was, when you talk about the value proposition, like what's in it for corporate America, what's in it for all of the influencers, the Mr. Beasts of the world, et cetera, or Nike, Face Clan, et cetera. The value proposition for them, the with them for them is you're starting to build the talent pipelines that you will need to fill the roles for the jobs that haven't even been created yet. And oftentimes, workforce development, recruitment, DEI, it's focused on college students. The problem with that is if in 7th grade or 6th grade, I hadn't already decided that one day I wanted to have a job in the metaverse and I understand what the path is to get there, then I may not have even made it to college, or I may have picked a completely different major because I was simply not aware of the pathways that were available to me. And so, so that means that we really have to start building these pipelines earlier. And that's what's in it for them, starting to invest in these young people as early as possible. For us, it's middle school and high school. We also work with college students. We've done some really cool things with college students as well. But them being able to really get in and start to build those, not only the roadmap, but rolling out the red carpet, telling these kids, come, we want you. So that's one opportunity. B, it's for these cool companies. I call them the cool companies because they're cool to our kids. But as a mom, before working with PlayStation, I did not care if my son had a PS3, a PS2, a PS5. But in working with PlayStation and seeing that they were interested, and at least this employee was very interested in investing in the future of my kids and not just taking my money. I was sitting on a beach in Miami when the PS5 first came out, desperate to get that for my kid. So what does that mean? That means that now not only can you have the kid as your customer, but you also have mom from her heart and from her mind, and not just from her wallet. So maybe she's not just buying your Fortnite skins for Christmas. Maybe she's buying them throughout the year because she's just as much of a fan of Fortnite as her kid is, because they have this mutual love for this kid's passion. And so building talent pipelines, expanding their fan base, which then becomes their customer base. And then, so now, instead of punishing little Jimmy and making him get off his Fortnite game, maybe I just make him cut the neighbor's grass because I like Fortnite and I won't use it as a punishment. It's a random example, but, or, for me, I buy my not only is my younger son, well, my older son started out as the burgeoning sneakerhead in our home. And then I started to look at his closet and say, man, I wish I could meet some folks at Nike, and then to start using Nike to teach about sports medicine and marketing and all of these other areas. And when they said yes, now all of a sudden I have more sneakers than I have high heels, because I'm just so in love with the brand and its mission and the way it's impacting all of the kids around the world. And so that's that second value proposition. And thirdly, it's, of course, there's absolutely a DEI impact. Students have to know that no matter where their origin story began, that the world is waiting for them. And oftentimes they don't hear that. They're not invited to the table. Therefore, they don't work towards that goal. And so I would say those are three of the top ways. And actually there's a fourth. I would say the fourth would be that many of the folks that I work with, they're parents too. And they're good people who work for big global conglomerates. And they're very rarely invited to be the one that speaks to kids about their journeys. And the journey of the guy in the marketing department at the Jordan brand is just as important and more easily applicable to a kid's life as Serena Williams. Jeff Harris from Jordan brand, their kids, thousands of kids could follow in his footsteps. There might be one kid that can follow in Serena Williams' footsteps on the court. However, her journey in business and philanthropy. And so the point is, there are so many people within these companies, as we've learned with all of the corporations we work for, who want to do the right thing, and they want to educate young people, but they're very rarely invited. And they become the celebrities to these young people. And because they're parents as well, they understand why this is important to this generation, and they want to help shape a better world for their own children and all the other kids around the world like me.
Exceptional. That's really great, Erica. This idea of, empowering not only the students, but also, the people that get the opportunity to be mentors. And that definitely alludes to some really interesting concepts around corporate social responsibility and also like technology social responsibility when it comes to how these platforms and companies interact with youth. I mean, has there been anything that surprised you as you build these organizations?
I guess one thing that has been pleasantly surprising is just how willing they've been to jump right in, and not just to, just send me a Zoom link and I'll jump on and say some stuff. But when we have partners that speak to our young people, oftentimes they invest just as many man hours in preparing for that 20 or 30-minute speech or for the project as my staff does. And, and it's especially just thinking about my friends at Nike and some, from PlayStation and Riot and even Microsoft, they absolutely apply the same level of excellence that they have to provide to Nike's goals and Nike projects. They apply that when they're preparing to speak to our young people. They'll make PowerPoint decks, they'll bring gifts, they'll do research. They'll engage with the kids to understand them more. If some young people say, hey, I'd love to be mentored, and the parents are fine with it, we've made connections in that way between young people and some of the mentors who, taken on that opportunity with kiddos. And so I would say that just the pure heart that I've seen from the people we've worked with, it hadn't just been a checkbox for a DEI initiative, if you will.
Yeah, sure. When you look over the next 6 to 12 months, are there any things coming up that you're particularly excited about?
Yes, a nap. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Hey, that's fair. That's fair.
No, I'm kidding. I definitely see us making some noise in the metaverse. I have no idea where that takes us. Well, I have some idea, but I don't know where we will land. But we will definitely be moving forward in that direction, whether it's with Beyond the Ball and being able to have sneaker labs in the metaverse, so that we can reach more students than we're able to when we have to, one school at a time, one community school at a time. We really want to start being more globally scalable with the sticky factor, the sticky factor that you often talk about. Yeah,
the idea of how do you transition transformative experiences from like really one-time episodic to like longer term, more consistent, more habit building, transformational. Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah. And so there's that, and then all three of the companies are looking at, as any entrepreneur does, what are ways that we can continue to grow. The consulting firm, we've never advertised. It's continued to grow year after year, just word of mouth. But maybe one day we'll want to change that. We'll want to be more intentional about getting in front of more school districts and, things like that. So who knows? Those are all the things that keep me up at night. Same with the tech company. That's the noisiest, fussiest baby we have in the cradle right now. But yeah, a lot of good opportunities, just staying relevant and really just keeping the ball moving down the field with a good team, including you. You're on that team.
No, you've been really gracious with your time. But before I let you go, what's the best way for us to keep up on the work you're doing at Kandake Tech, Beyond the Ball, and Expansion Solutions?
Yeah, so I would say follow us on LinkedIn, Erica Molett, Molett. We suck at social media right now. We're not nearly as consistent as we want to be, but we will give some time. But you can also follow our websites, beyondtheball.net, kandake.tech, as well as expansionsolutions.net.
Very good. Well, we'll make sure to have links to all of those in the show notes. But thanks again for coming on the show, Erica, and congratulations on and thank you for all the great stuff you're doing to empower the next generation of leaders while unlocking the potential of some of the brands they love.
My pleasure. And thank you for all of your support and partnership, my friend.
Yeah. Talk more soon, Erica. Thank you.